Addis on the left with Selesnya Company, and then Kamari Bolger on the right with this Acererak combo.
Yeah, Acererak combo, if you haven't seen it before, basically it's very much like a deck that just does the same thing over and over again, like most combo decks, but this time you just enter the dungeons over and over, casting Acererak, and eventually you drain your opponent out to win. So it's sort of like a creature combo deck that involves casting a thing over and over. It's pretty strong against certain types of decks, and it has these sort of incredibly fast draws available to it too. But it also struggles against things like Phoenix from time to time if it doesn't have a good backup plan. We'll have to see if Kamari can do that in the future rounds. But this round, Selesnya Company, typically a deck that does not interact very well with what Acererak combo is doing.
Yeah, and I mean, both these decks running 4 copies of Collected Company. So probably in for seeing a lot of them resolving here in this match. Now the Acererak combo deck, see a lot of familiar players from the standard Slogurk decks if you are present for any of those. We've got Honest Rusty, we've got Rona's, we've got Relic of Legends, the Channel Lands, Plaza of Heroes. Really a lot of ways to make a ton of mana and pop off here. As we are getting started, it's like Kamari mulled to 6. And Jacob going to start us off.
Experiment 1. It's back off the Cavern of Souls nonetheless.
Experiment 1. And we're going to pass back over. The Cavern is on humans to Kamari, who's going to get a little elf out, little mana dork.
Yeah, Thalia sometimes really good because it stops Relic of Legends on turn 2. Rest of the time, pretty rough against this Acererak combo deck. But this is the time where it'll be good. Like our opponent could have put it on play turn 3 as, oh my goodness, Niall, we're going fast with Gwenna coming down.
Yeah, Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, really, really strong here. We've got a ton of mana available to Kamari if he is able to untap with this Gwenna. What is that? 5 without playing another land as long as we're casting creatures?
Yeah. Now it looks like we do have a bit of a spicy one here with the Kitesail Larson is coming down. That's going to turn one of these things, I imagine, Gwenna, yeah, we see it flips upside down, into a treasure until it leaves the battlefield. And that's one of the nice parts about these, Selesnya Company decks is they get to play a lot of pretty powerful creatures and sort of put your opponent on the back foot. Honestly, Niall, I think the way to look at this deck, I think we were maybe tricked. This is sort of just humans. This is not the Company deck that players are thinking of that's grinding out a bunch of value with Innocence and stuff like that. This is just like old modern humans, but in Pioneer. It's pretty exciting looking at it.
Yeah, and it looks like we are going to go ahead and use Gwenna as a treasure to cast this Collected Company.
And we hit another Gwenna. It's just good deck building.
It's just good deck building. A Gwenna and a Kennen Bonder Prodigy.
Yeah, Kennen's going to give extra mana. Kamari does have 3 Atraxas in the deck. So, I mean, we're at Atraxa mana if we untap uninterrupted. But these humans decks are very good at sort of disrupting your opponent a little bit and applying pressure, as we see Reflector Mage doing just that.
Yeah, and I mean, this Experiment one really growing quickly. We're going to tap 4 for this Relic, thanks to Thalia.
And that's game. Kamari wins with the Acererak.
Yeah, so Mason, for people who aren't familiar, why don't you walk through this Acererak combo?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is we're going to keep exploring the dungeon over and over. We're going to make a mana with the Acererak by tapping it to the Relic of Legends. And we're going to go through the dungeons over and over and over again. One of the dungeons is Drain. I don't know the name of it. I'm sorry, I'm a bad commentator. But basically what happens is Acererak will always go back to your hand as long as you haven't explored the one tomb. And when they made this card, they had such pure dreams. They're like, the Archlich will summon the demon. That's its goal. Players will want to do that. That's cool. And what we said is, what if we played this one card a million times and drain our opponents to death? And that's what Kimahri has done here. And that is the strength of this deck. If you don't interact enough or get Kimahri done dead soon enough, Kimahri will just kill you.
Yeah, and let's take a look at these deck lists real quick. Taking a look at Jacob's Selesnya Company list. I mean, as you said, kind of feels a bit like a humans list. What do you think we don't like or want to bring in? What do you think is important in the matchup?
Yeah, so this is one of the awkward spots where, like we talked about just a second ago, you are good at disrupting a little bit and applying pressure, which is what you need to do, but you just need to make sure that you can stop Kimahri from getting there. But you don't have any hard removal. We don't have anything that's like an instant speed way to interact. So we have Brutal Cathar. That's the closest thing to removal we're going to have. That's going to remove a creature until the Cathar leaves play. And honestly, I think that's probably it. We might see Cathar Commando come into the deck over one of these other main deck creatures as a way to fight over the Relic. They can win without the Relic in play, if I remember correctly. It's just harder. But making it harder, if you have a good pressure, is a great way to go about it. And I imagine we're going to see something in that regards when it comes to sideboarding here for Jacob.
Yeah, and let's take a look now at Kimahri's list and see sort of what we're working with here. And as we mentioned earlier, a lot of the legends that play really nicely with these combos. Taking a look at the sideboard, though, what do we like here? We've got these 4 Thoughtseizes, we've got Fatal Pushes, and Abrupt Decay, Assassin Trophy.
We just want the removal, right? We just want to bring in our Fatal Pushes. We probably want to bring in this Abrupt Decay. I'm down for maybe a trophy as well. And just sort of cut on some of our cards that don't line up super well and just sort of have ways to prevent that snowball from happening to us, right? That would be a huge problem. And really the question is how many humans does, Kimahri know about that could be in this deck? Because there are some that we're not playing, like the Silverquill Silencer, that you name a creature, or you name a card, every time the opponent plays that card, they lose life, right? So Kimahri might be like, oh, I need all my removal to stop something like that because that would stop my deck, Now, we know Jacob's not playing that this weekend, but it's easy to sort of, if you know enough of the humans to be like, oh, I might need to have a ton of removal. I think in reality, Kimahri probably just wants 4, maybe 5 pieces of interaction and wants to go fast. I think we're good in this sort of matchup. We just need to make sure that we don't get completely run over. Let's not worry about these Atraxas. They're going to get answered in a lot of worlds. Let's just do our thing and go from there.
Yeah, and it looks like our players are finishing their sideboarding now, starting to get shuffled up and ready. Just quick reminder, we've got a next event coming up. It's going to be in Chicagoland. That's May 10th and 11th. But the 10K Modern Showdown and then the 5K Standard Trial. So make sure to come out for that. You can qualify for the Invitational through this. Also, Modern and Standard, just really cool right now. Especially this is going to be, post BNR Modern. Really interested to see what that's going to look like. And then after this in June, we're going to have the Indianapolis event where we're going to have the Standard Showdown on Saturday and then the 10K Team Final Fantasy Sealed on Sunday. Absolutely cannot wait to see that as our players are cutting decks now, getting down into the game, drawing up. We're going to have Jacob on the play here for game 2 with Kimahri up 1 game.
Yeah. And Kimahri, someone we saw at Champs this past year, wants to get back. Starting off pretty well today, at least at 2-0. Today's event is a trial, not going to punch someone's ticket, but the points could be the deal breaker in a future weekend.
Absolutely. And, still a 5K, still a lot on the line for these players. It looks like Kimahri going to take a mulligan here. Now, with these sort of combo decks, like what Kimahri is playing, I was about to say pretty common to mulligan fairly aggressively, right? We're looking for pretty specific key pieces as Kimahri takes another mulligan, which, I think sometimes to the untrained eye looks like a sign of weakness, but I think in a lot of these decks, can sometimes be scarier than anything. I mean, mulligans are very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of just 3 cards Kamari wins the game combinations, which obviously you want more cards to have more looks at that, but you'd rather have, 5 of the perfect cards than 7 pretty good cards when you can just win the game on the spot, as we see a mirror of game 1 happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the Cavern on Humans Experiment 1. Is this going to be a Thalia? Are we going to see the perfect? No, it is not going to be a Thalia. Is that the werewolf?
It's the Werewolf Pack Leader. It is one of the 3 cards in a year that was released with Pack Leader, all spelled differently. It's a fun MTG fact.
That is fun.
Yeah.
As that Pack Leader is going to get swiftly dealt with, but Experiment 1 still going to grow. We're going to see a Mana Confluence as our land for turn for Jacob.
Yep. And remember, Jacob's deck is just a humans deck. It just plays creatures and applies pressure. So all of our things are going to be uncounterable. Our mana is going to be really good when it comes to these Cavern, Secluded Courtyards, Unclaimed Territories. We're just all creatures. Every card in our deck except 4 is a creature. We have 4 collected companies. We have 21 lands, 4 companies, 50 creatures. Jacob came to attack.
Yeah, now worth noting, Kamari did not find a second land drop. Mold of 5, 1 lander. I mean, we do have a couple mana dorks, so he's definitely not unable to cast spells here. As we are seeing the Hopeful Initiate, and that is a Gwynna again for Kamari. And even on 1 land, this is very scary.
Yeah, I mean, if we see something like Relic into Acererak, that's game, right? We talked about this before, and that forces Jacob to have to leave up the mana for this Cathar Commando. But there are other iterations of the combo where we get to dodge having Relic in play. So we'll have to see, if Kamari has one of them. Like Gwynna, Rustine, and Acererak, I believe, is also a kill. Old trusty Rusty making things cost less. Yeah, and you see Kamari had a lot of mana, but the pressure, and that is what Jacob needs to be doing here in game number 3 as well. Keep that pressure up, disrupt just enough so your opponent can't quite get there. Mulligan helps a little, and then cross the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, Jacobs. We're going to have a game 3 on our hands. I mean, very well played. You saw things like playing that Cathar Commando before attacking so we could grow our Experiment 1, get that extra point of damage across the line there. Those things really stack up and add up, and, very, very wise of him to see that he needed to be just dealing as much damage as possible, as fast as possible, and find that line to victory. And we'll see in our game 3 here if Kamari is able to maybe get a little bit of a nicer hand. Maybe some like a second land would be cool. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, second land's nice. I mean, that is one of the benefits too of Kamari's deck, right? Is we have a lot of mana dorks. So we can pull it up on screen here and take a look at it for the people at home. You have a lot of mana dorks in a lot of ways to sort of cheat on mana or things that are mana light. So these 2 to 3 land hands can actually produce 7 to infinite mana pretty easily. But you do sort of still need to play your things in a good, timely way. And that is sort of what Jacob's hoping to stop. Things like Reflector Mage can be really powerful against this deck. Those are the cards Jacob is going to want to lean on in these games. And Kamari's just hoping to be a little faster than that, Hopefully you tap out for like a turn 2 Thalia or, maybe some sort of Lord effect. And hey, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to kill you. That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, talking about how brutal the 1-lander is, but kind of as you mentioned, even with just the 1 land, Kamari was in a position where with the right cards had lethal. With the Rusty Acererak, Gwynna combination, that's enough. And that's wild that he's able to get there on just the 1 land. So really interested to see how this 3rd game goes between these 2 players. It looks like they are shuffling up and presenting their decks now. So we'll just hop on down and see how this one ends up. Both players, of course, 2-0 at the moment in our round 3. Going into round 4, 3-0. Very nice. Put you in a really good spot.
Yep. 3-0 is the best start you can have after round 3. These players want to be there.
Yeah, caught a few of the cards that Kamari was drawing there. I think I saw Relic of Legends, an Elf, and Acerak. So seems like a much nicer start than what he got last game.
Yeah, if you have that plus 2 lands, I mean, you're looking at a potential, turn 3 kill, especially if you get Gwenna down.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob,
there we go. Cavern, Experiment 1, like clockwork.
Yeah.
If there's Gwenna, next turn could be it.
This is what we were talking about. Jacob, I mean, has some cards that can kind of interact here, but turn 3 is when all the real stuff comes on. A pack leader gets played, but we can't even attack into the Gwenna.
I think that's game.
There's Relic into Acerak, and Kamari wins the game. This is the strength of this Acerak combo deck. This is why Kamari brought this here this weekend, Niall, because it does that sort of thing. And, even imagine against some of the other decks of the format, if they were to tap out playing creatures where maybe these permanents accrue advantage, Kamari gets to sneak in those wins and really shows why this deck is something that a lot of players turn to, unlike that, once again, that like tier 2-ish part of Pioneer that's like a card away from being a real menace in our format.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. There's just so few things that he could have done to stop it at that point. I mean, really, really cool to get to see. And I think we're actually going to get to talk to Kamari here, have a little interview in just a second. Hello, Kamari.
Hi,
can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. All right. Congratulations, first of all, on winning that, becoming 3-0. Very well done. Very excellently played.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm off to a good start, especially after my day 1 ended pretty badly. But yeah.
Nice. So what led you to wanting to play this Acerak combo deck in Pioneer?
Well, the last time I got interviewed, I was playing Ronaluka, and I had just luckily gotten over Grayson, who was on this deck here. And right after I got home, I ordered the deck because it looked super cool, and I really just love cool combo decks like this. I think that it's one of the most underrepresented decks in Pioneer because, despite how powerful it is, as you saw there, I was able to get a win on turn 3. The deck's really good, but you cannot play it on MTGO. Not until Wizards adds some sort of loop mechanic to the format. But yeah, you just can't play it online. Too many clicks, so it's only ever represented in paper. But yeah, this is the kind of decks that I'm usually drawn to. But
yeah, we were talking about the game to mold a 5, and obviously stuck on 1 land. But even with being stuck on 1 land, you're in a position where, like, with the right cards on that last turn, you still could have comboed off, right?
Yeah, like if my hand was just Relic Acerak in that last turn, still just have it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You can mull pretty low and still just have the win presented on like turn 3, turn 4, which is awesome.
Yeah, very cool. Now, going into the rest of the tournament today, are there any decks that you are particularly hoping to dodge, or any that you're particularly hoping to run into?
I like running into the less interactive combo decks like Lotus Field and Mono Green. They just don't have a lot they can do against you. Mono Green has Stonebrain post forward sometimes, but usually only 1 or 2 copies. And then Lotus Field can bounce your stuff, but usually isn't fast enough to beat you. Usually I try to dodge Phoenix and Rakdos. They are some of the most presented decks in the format, and I think I'm pretty fine into them as well. I'm a Coco deck. I have Kinnan and Atraxa. You can hard cast Atraxa often in this deck, which is fine. Decent against Phoenix, decent against Rakdos, but they just have the pieces to tear apart your combo. They have the Thoughtseizes, the Fatal Pushes. Phoenix has Fiery Impulse, Axe, and the ability to see their whole deck in the game. I beat a Phoenix player in round 2, but I feel like I got a little bit lucky. He never had any of his engines on turn 2, like the artist talent, and had to wait to tap out for like a treasure cruise for like 5 mana in one of our games. It was like, I felt pretty lucky. But yeah, like generally it's pretty 50-50 against Phoenix, especially when you're facing a really good pilot. So mostly trying to dodge that, but we'll see.
Makes sense. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to sit down and talk with us. We're going to get to our backup feature match. We're going to give you some time to go relax, and hopefully we'll see more of you later today.
Awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope to see me later today too.
Hey, go check the mirror. You can always show yourself there. We hope to see you in this feature match area though as well. We'll see you around.
Awesome.
See ya.
See you guys.
Yeah, I mean, really impressive stuff there. Talking to, I think, very honest and open about it too. I really respect sort of like, hey, I've got issues with some of these top decks, but it's not zero. I have plans, and I really like that. I think a lot of players sort of delude themselves sometimes thinking like, oh, I'm still good against the best decks by a lot. And Kamar's like, hey, it's tough.
Yeah.
Like I have game. I'm definitely not wanting to play them. So it's a sign of someone who really knows what's going on with their deck.
Right. Well, we have a backup feature ready, and it is a very interesting one. So let's get down to that. This is Angels versus Demons. Will Kruger, who we saw earlier on Rakdos Demons, versus Mason Grode here on the Selesnya Angels. Very, very interesting battle here.
Yeah, Constantine level battle here.
Now Angels, also has been something of a deck and pioneer for a very long time as well. Common pattern that we've seen from Will today, this turn 1 Thoughtseize, and oh man, so much redundancy in Mason's hand here.
Yeah, this matchup's a tough one for Demons. You have some cards that can matter, but basically the Angels deck is really good at battling through like people trying to 1-for-1 them. I mean, you're seeing Enduring Innocence, you're seeing, Kayla's Reconstruction, the deck plays Collected Company. It's just very good at sort of putting something on the battlefield. And then since Kruger's trying to win via damage, the actual life gain from the Angels comes up being pretty huge, and the flying makes it hard for them to be, blocked in combat. We saw this with, Robert Taylor's deck in round number 2 with Ninjas. Flying just actually meant, even though we're only chipping in for a little bit of damage, it isn't the end of the world.
Right, as we are going to see one of the Enduring Innocence taken as the card, as we're going to see the Giada come down for Mason here. Now, do you think most of that is just, obviously Enduring Innocence, very powerful card, also one of the harder cards for Will to actually fully deal with?
Yeah, I think Will is just like knows this game is going to go long and basically is hoping that the Innocence won't play a huge role. And you can't keep Mason off of Giadas with there being 2 without using a kill spell. And you really want to fight over specific Angels typically in this matchup. There are some of them that just sort of get out of the hand, like the Righteous Valkyrie or Spin-Linded Angel. And yeah, you're seeing Kruger here even hoping to maybe put Mason behind on mana a bit longer by sacking that Blood Tithe Harvester.
Yeah, it looks like Mason missing the 3rd land drop, which would have, let us get that Enduring Innocence out perhaps. And there is the land. Oh, but it's going to be a Skyclave taking care of the Annex.
No. Niall, if we kill this Skyclave, we get an 8/8 illusion.
That is huge. That is enormous. And there's a Blood Tithe Harvester. Pretty nice way to deal with the Skyclave next turn.
Yeah, and Will also has Go for the Throw in hand. We talked about how, you want to use specific things. If Mason just like land goes, okay, there's one of the specific Angels. That's going to stop Kruger from, maybe wanting to use this Go for the Throw and get 8 damage across the line. But
yeah, this is Righteous Valkyrie.
Yeah, this is really the Angel that makes it all work.
Yeah, this is going to do a lot of the life gaining for the deck as we see it on screen here. Thank you, production. And we are going to go for the throat that Skyclave. We are going to get our 8/8. Pretty nice.
Yep.
Pretty nice.
And probably a sign Kruger's fine just trading the Blood Tithe Harvester for the Valkyrie. He has 2 bloods, so he will still be able to get it as a 2/4. It has not grown out of range yet. Makes a lot of sense.
And now just gets to swing for 8. Oh, sorry, 10 with the Mutavault.
Yeah, and this is how games where you beat Angels as Demons typically look, is you either play a really long game where they don't draw enough Cocos to really do something, or you disrupt them a little with your Thoughtseize Fatal Pushes, and you push across a lot of damage. Now, typically that damage is done with Shieldred or Blood Tithe Harvester, but the Skyclave Apparition actually doing a great job of helping Kruger take over this game as, Lenora Elf coming down.
Yeah, and man, this is so tough for Mason here. We've got multiple Mutavaults. We've got the Blood Tithe Harvester that can clear anything out of the way, really. We have so many blood tokens, we're able to use one on the end of Mason's turn.
Yeah, and Will had a hand of all lands, but picked up Shieldred as his redraw. If you're gonna get flooded out, that's one of the best ones to be flooded out with. Oh, there's Thoughtseize, Nile.
Yeah, Thoughtseize big get here. But I mean, Mason swinging, or sorry, Will swinging in with the 8/8. That was a gift from Mason. Not attacking with any of the Mutavolts, just, attack with the 8/8. You kind of have to block it. You know Shieldred exists. You know Annex exists. Both these cards could mean death if you don't block this 8/8.
Yeah, I think that's what Kruger's trying to do. He's saying, hey, I'm going to put you in an awkward spot. If you block, I'm probably going to Blood Tithe Harvester down your other Mana Dork, and you won't be able to play your cards. And I think he's trying to tempt Mason into being like, well, I can't win either way. I need to just, make a risky play. And now this Thoughtseize clears up another card in hand from Mason. And yeah, I mean, Will can take just about any of them, and they're all pretty good takes.
Yeah, looking at the Kayla's reconstruction here. I mean, like you said, any of these are pretty reasonable cards to take. Now we're going to see the Shieldred come down. We're going to see the Mana Dork get taken care of. The third Mutavault. Shieldred comes down. Take Mason down to 8.
Yeah, and I love this play from Will. He's basically, even though there's all 3s in hand, he wants to play around Collected Company. So even though the Blood Tithe Harvester could have cleared up either of the creatures played, Will knows the only card I lose to here is something like the other Kayla's or like an extra Collected Company. So you know what? Score 1 on the board there for Demons.
Yeah, very well played. Will, congratulations taking that first game. We're going to take a look at the list real quick, taking a look at Mason's Selesnya Angels list. Now looking at the sideboard, I've seen 4 portable holes, some Get Lost. We've got Elishnorn, some Archons and Guardians. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, structurally our deck's pretty good against what Will's trying to do. We're just going to do some more little upgradey stuff. We're going to get some Get Lost in our deck in order to fight over the Annex, fight over Shieldred type stuff. Just have some removal. Probably going to see something similar when it comes to Skyclave. Just sort of, some small changes, try to interact a bit more, probably rely less on some Mana Dorks. Call it a day here. Mason's really happy to play this matchup, and Kruger is really happy to steal game 1.
Yeah, and let's take a look actually at Kruger's list real quick at these Rakdos Demons that we saw earlier today. Seeing again here in the feature match area. We've got, as far as removal goes, we've got Extinction Events, we've got Angers, we've got Torch the Towers. We've even got a few Invoke Despairs. What do you like here?
Yeah, so I mean, Extinction Event's a great one. A lot of the best cards are odd when it comes to this Angel deck. We have a bunch of 3-mana Angels that are really good, and then we have a bunch of Llanowar Elves that sometimes we lean on for mana, like we talked about. I'm expecting those to go down a little bit, but not get cut completely. So I can imagine Will bring those in. You can also even does have a couple, bangers. We didn't really talk too much about the card Bishop of Wings, but that is one that can really get out of hand. So you get 2 or 3 of those on board, which is very easy to happen with Collected Company. Being able to clean those up can be very nice. So I imagine we're going to see that. But then here's part of the problem. We don't have a whole lot else we want. Part of the nice thing about Angels is a lot of their creatures' toughness outsizes the red removal in the format. And so it really falls on Fatal Push to sort of clean up the rest. So these Torch the Towers, yeah, sometimes they hit things like they can get the Giada. You can bargain to get a Resplendent Angel if the Valkyrie isn't too big. But Will is just sort of in a position of my deck is not very good here. Angels is not a huge part of the metagame. If I play against them, I'm going to hope to get lucky, hope they get a little unlucky and call it a day. And I think that's what we're going to see here for game number 2 from Will as well.
Yeah, and excited to see how this game 2 ends up shaking out as our players have resolved their mulligans. Mason on the play here. Just a little tapped land, and Will going to play a land and pass as well. And there's that Bishop that you were just talking about, Bishop of Wings, hitting the field. Turn 2 for Mason. Will's going to double check, make sure understands how exactly this works. And we're going to go back over to the turn. So no in-step deal with your Bishop there.
Yeah, Bishop of Wings is a really strong enabler for triggering a lot of the best angels. A lot of them either want you to gain X amount of life in a turn or be above, X life total. So Bishop does that, but also insulates you from removal a little bit. Obviously, a 1/1 Spirit is not as good as, my mythic rare angels I put in my deck, but it's not nothing, and the fact that this Bishop means, okay, if you want to actually kill that Resplendent Valkyrie like we saw in game number 1, I'm going to get a little bit of something left behind, excuse me, that can be really annoying for this Rakdos deck.
Yeah, so you're going to see the Harvester take care of this Llanowar Elves, and then Fable the Mirror Breaker as the play for Will here. And another Bishop from Mason. Are we stuck on lands again? Looks like yes.
Yeah, we've been missing a couple land drops. Now, Mason's deck has a lot of 3s and 4s. If we draw a third land into an angel, we're going to gain 8 life, assuming Will can't interact with these bishops. And that's going to undo a lot of the pressure that Will's going to try to put down here. Also, those are 1/4s, Niall. That's just going to be able to block this Goblin Shaman down.
Yeah, absolutely. As on Will's turn here, we are processing our Fable trigger, discarding a couple lands, seeing an Annex, and not sure what the second card there was.
I think
certainly happy to have the Annex.
Yeah, it has Annex and Mutavault in hand, and looks like he's willing to potentially throw away the Goblin in order to make a treasure. Now, this could just be Will bluffing. I have some damage-based removal spell, and is trying to catch the Bishop / catch Mason.
What if he did bring in Anger of the Gods? How crazy would that be?
It'd be really good here.
Extinction Event, gonna take care of both of those bishops.
And this is what we talked about in sideboarding, right, Niall? There's a lot of good odds, and that's probably what Kruger wanted to, but sometimes you catch 2-3 bishops and you're over the moon, and that's where Will is now.
Yep, and there's Skyclave, take care of the Fable. This time, when the Skyclave dies, gonna get a much smaller illusion.
Yeah,
good for Mason.
Yeah, I think those players are joking about it as you see them both laughing there that, hey, if I got the kill spell this time, it's a lot less of an issue.
Yeah, well, we joke about it, but it really shows how much Mason respects Annex as a card for Will. That he was willing to sort of make that trade.
Yeah, he incurred a lot of risk, but it was a risk that he kind of had to take. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And Will's playing the Demon half.
The Demon half. We're making a 6/6 for Mason to have to deal with.
And this is a great spot for Will. The Demon is actually going to be able to chunk Mason's life total very meaningfully. You can gain a lot of life, and you need to, and be at a certain life total for some of your cards to work. So even if that Mason can get back there, thanks to a timely Coco or a bunch of angels entering later, buying that time now is huge. And Skyclave Apparition, one of Mason's best removal spells here, doesn't hit tokens.
Yeah, we also have, because of the treasure token, Fatal Push with Revolt online at any time. If we need to take care of anything on Mason's board.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues and why, Silesian Angels theoretically has a lot of pretty good matchups to great matchups, but your cards are really clunky, and you're kind of relying on cards like Collected Company to overpower your opponents in certain spots. You don't have as much raw efficiency as a deck like Will Kruger's does here. Rakdos Demon's just sort of bread and butter Jund deck.
Yeah, and no Fatal Push there. We do have the Extinction Event. We have Go for the Throat. Looks like it is going to be Extinction Event.
Oh, this is huge. That's 11 power and illusions getting added to the board.
Yeah, that is enormous. But Mason's wishing he had an Extinction Event in his hand right now.
Yeah, being able to name even here would be very good. But, Mason's best draw is something like land so that he can draw Coco. But even if he does, Will's done a great job of capitalizing on this stumble here from Mason, and just keeping him on the back foot, making sure to prevent him from ever getting a trigger. If Will had spent that turn prior when we Extinction Evented the bishops, instead maybe playing a threat, we would have played a Resplendent Angel and got 8 life, which would have triggered the angel, which would have got 8 more life. Yeah, and you're seeing just a concession here from Mason. He knows he can't do it.
Wow. Congratulations, Will Kruger. Very well played. I mean, as you were saying, Angels favored in that matchup. Will's got to be pretty thrilled to have run into Mason short on lands 2 games in a row. And I mean, played very well around that as well, making sure to heavily prioritize the mana dorks and keep Mason off as much mana for as long as possible. So very well executed.
Yeah, great plays there by Will. I know if you're at home, it might be sort of silly saying like, oh yeah, he killed everything or whatever, but there were some key points where we could have chose not killing stuff and instead developing. We picked the fights when we needed to. We developed when we needed to. And listen, everyone who top 8s a tournament, especially a big one like this, has a story where they got lucky in one of the rounds. To me, this was Will Kruger's round where he needed to get lucky. He got lucky, and now it's up to him to sort of clutch it out for the rest of the rounds and see if he can make another top 8 here today.
Yeah, and we will have some more rounds of Magic coming up leading up to our top 8. We are going to take a quick break, but don't go too far. We'll be right back with more Magic.